欢迎收看四海一家 Welcome to Four Seas One Family Taiwan. My name is James. What's your Jimmy? Well, this is an impromptu link that I decided to do today. Just a little stream for a little bit. Hey, how you doing? Got somebody in there already. And I want to talk about really briefly about the future of this channel. Now, if you're an English speaker, 善用英文, and been following us a little bit on the channel, and I'd like to thank Randy out in Shanghai for appointing some of his people over here. I really appreciate it. Now, most of you probably already know that I've, in the past, primarily we're doing mainly podcasts, and that has picked up some traction. And until recently, I've decided to do some of my podcasts here on YouTube. And there are some things happening that I think I would like to talk about that maybe you can help me to maybe add some future content to this channel. Now, because I'm located out here in Taipei, Taiwan, and we're right across the strait from mainland China, a lot of things are happening out here, and it's quite scary, especially with the situation between the United States and China and the trade war and all that stuff. And we got China and India going at it, and China and Vietnam going at it, and China and Japan going at it, and China and South Korea going at it. There's so much shakiness going out here. And for the most part, most people out here are really used to it. But things have taken on another level of, how you say, heightened nervousness, or even in some cases, negative anticipation. That can get on the nerves of people sometimes. But the people here, the Taiwanese people here, are used to this type of pressure. But this is something that you don't let your guards down. And I'm going to ask for you to, maybe you can help direct me into the direction that topics that you would find to be interesting from my point of view being out here, especially as an African American living out here in Asia, especially here in Taiwan, which is just a wonderful place of wonderful people. Some of the most wonderful people, the most engaging people I've ever known, I've met out here. Considering that I've spent over a quarter of my life out here, maybe even half, I should say that, more than half my life living out here in Asia, but especially here in Taiwan. But I want to talk about something else, and maybe you can even help me here. You know, Mr. Trump has been doing a lot of shaking up, both domestically in America and overseas, especially here with China, so close to China here. Here is China's like our across the street neighbor that is constantly flying their military aircraft into the airspace here, causing the Taiwan government to send up their fleet of F-16s up. But I'm put in a very weird situation because as an African American and understanding, especially being a New Yorker, and understanding and knowing about the background of Trump in the United States and in New York, and some of the underdealings that he's known, I've known a lot about his background. I've read his niece's book about him. His niece is a clinical psychologist, and she doesn't think highly of her uncle, which is quite pitiful when you have your own relatives talking to you where in a way that most people in the United States would actually know the way you are. Some people in the United States accept you for who you are, Mr. Trump, but you're actually making a lot of trouble for a lot of people who look like me in the United States. But that's not the topic I want to talk about, not directly. Living out here in Asia and being so close to China, and understanding a lot about, and this is what I studied, Chinese history and the language. I can pick up a newspaper and read what's going on, and not only just read the characters, but understand what they mean in their coded states sometimes. I'm lucky enough that I'm able to still be in contact with some of my mainland Chinese classmates and read the information that's on their Weibo accounts or internet service. And I understand the timings of some of the news releases there that's often one-sided, and how some people in mainland China are just kept in the dark in many ways. And I mean, I'm not talking about the people, because they're wonderful people that have good friends over there too. I'm talking about the situations of our leadership on both sides. Because coming in November is, the voting time in the United States. And We have to choose a president that needs to be a good leader for not only the country, but for the United States, I should say, but also a beacon for the rest of the world to follow, in some cases, emulate. People look to the United States for leadership. And now it's kind of like changing because the current administration has ruffled up some feathers. Not all that I can agree with, but there is a particular situation that I can agree with Mr. Trump on. And some of it is the behavior of, well, the CCP government in China. In particular, I understand how some people may feel about the situation where, I have friends in China, expats in China, who are very pro-Chinese, and they care about their place because they married there, have family there, have investments there. And yes, the Chinese people, there's so many kind people there, wonderful people there, knowledgeable people there, but there's part of some things that they're not really informed on, or they choose to selectively not pay attention to. And that's not to blame them, at least not in this situation. China has been, put in a very good situation where it allowed the West to support them, allow them to get ahead to where they are. Also, the West is to blame for some of the things that China is doing to them. Many Western nations, companies, especially from the West, really looked at China as a way to market their product. And we're hoping that, if we teach the Chinese people how to be like us, and maybe they'll open up to us and we'll be able to sell our products and things like that. But like I've said before, sometimes you have to be very careful to what you wish for. China's done a good job in, supplanting information from the West. Fine. They send a majority of their population over to the Western nations to get educated, which is fine. Why not? It's fair. My phone is ringing here. But I have to look at the terms of something called reciprocation. You see, a lot of U.S., say, online streaming services such as YouTube, Facebook, and stuff like that, Twitter, are just banned in China. Okay. But on the other hand, when the West bans some Western nations, things can get very shaky here. How you doing, Youssef? Where you from? Where you living in Sao Paulo, Brazil? Hola. Thank you very much. It could be quite shaky because China, for the typical Chinese to see what's going on in the world, they have to do something called fanqiang. They have to go over the wall, means flip over the wall, fanqiang, to see what the rest of the world is doing. So reciprocation is the key here. Yes, countries have the right to, block access to certain parts of their market, fine. But when they also want to be treated fairly in other nations, they have to think about terms of reciprocation. If you look at, for example, and remember I just said that the West is partly responsible for the position China has put themselves in. If you just look very carefully, for example, at how many Chinese nationals are involved in U.S. special projects, in institutions, educational institutions. But if the other way around, you don't see many Westerners, for example, many Westerners studying in China in some elite institution that is doing work for the government of China. You don't see that, but you see that happening all over the place in the United States, that universities like Harvard, Stanford, these are universities that are sometimes hired out by the government to do special research. Now, something came out the other day where in Australia, about 30-something, how would you say, educators that are from China doing research in Australia, actually taking some of the knowledge that they've learned in their research in Australia and bringing it back to China and actually getting it patented. Now, you probably heard stories about companies in China going after Western companies for copyright infringements or something like that. This is happening, and the West is finally waking up and see the position that they put themselves in. And some of this, their blindness or their naivety, And the truth is, this is the saying. Okay, you lived in Shanghai for 2 years. What's the call and number? I don't get it. What do you mean? What's the area, the country code for China? Taiwan is 886. But let me continue. Some of the naivety, how naive the Western nations were, in this case with China, and also in other places, has put them in a situation that they're in today. A lot of it is greed. But China has a history where it's been stepped upon by many nations. So it probably feels, no, not probably, definitely feel that it doesn't want to get in a situation like that again. So it's taken a position where it's always protecting itself. And it's just doing business. Like I said, you have to be careful what you wish for. But like my friend Randy says, you have to have the receipts. Those receipts are widely available. But I'm going to go back into the roots of why I'm doing this stream right now. Because as being an African American and understanding Trump and his administration's behaviors to people who look like me in the United States, I know how I would typically vote if I was just living in the United States. But now I'm put in a very precarious situation because I'm living here in Taiwan and know that there's missiles pointing or directly at the island from where. I do feel some comfort with some U.S. warships being off the northeast coast of Taiwan and the southeast coast of Taiwan. I am shaken by the, how would you say, the concept from mainland China of this concerning getting 9-dash lines, which covers so much of Southeast Asian lands to parts of Japan and the Philippines. It is really, really scary. So, Yusuf, what, a call in? Well, maybe, yeah, we can do that, but let me set up some time with you. I'd be glad to have you in. But what I'm saying is that it is quite scary. Now, if I vote, for example, Biden, I would worry about, will he still stand up to the people next door? Will he? But then on the other side of the coin, people back home really need a change. They really need an embedment of their situation. What would you do if you were in my situation? Living out here in Taiwan with missiles pointing at you, but in some ways supporting what Mr. Trump is doing as far as standing up to the neighbors next door. What would you do, Yusuf? What would you do? When you know that 45 is the way he's treating people who look like me back home. Like I said, if I was just living back home with no ties to here in Taiwan, I would definitely want to change, put a new change. The philosophy is for most people that there's really no differences between the current large two political parties in the United States. But what would you do? You'll just sit back and watch, Yusuf. Well, this is what I want to talk about today. I just wanted to spend about a couple of minutes, 15 minutes, I think, on this. Once again, I'm reaching out for support from you. If you can help me spread the word, that people of the world really have a lot more in common than they think. I will be producing more here online. And because I'm trying to also do other projects here, we also have another show called Taiwan Blend running. I got my friend Sean working to get that running also with me. He's doing a great job. But we've been busy the past 2 weeks, but we still are pushing it. Okay, well, I won't continue ghost talking here. Yusuf, thank you for jumping in. And I think, who's this? I think this is, hey, I think I see Lian Kwan. Oh, I think that is Elvis. How you doing, Elvis? Hi, teacher. Okay, well, guys, I'm going to back out here and thank you very much for joining me here at 4Cs One Family. And please subscribe and hit that little bell there so you can get notified of what I'm doing here. So take care wherever you are and 再见.